Welcome back. We've been discussing the prospects of Israel giving back the Golan Heights as part of a peace deal with Syria. Joining me from New York is the former Israeli ambassador to the US and peace negotiator Itamar Rabinovich. From Paris is writer and Middle East analyst Patrick Seal, and in Washington, D.C., Professor Morhaf Jouejati of the Nessa Center at the National Defense University. Now, I want to move the discussion now to the issue of Syria's nuclear capabilities. Last September, Israel destroyed what it says was a nuclear facility in Syria. The United States claims North Korea had been helping to build the nuclear reactor. On Tuesday evening, President Bush explained why the U.S. had chosen this moment to support claims that Damascus had been developing a nuclear capability.
And that it's essential that we work together to enforce UN Security Council resolutions aimed at getting Iran to stop their enrichment programs. In other words, one of the things that this example shows is that, you know, these programs can exist and people don't know about them. And because the Syrians simply didn't declare the program. They had a hidden program.
Well, Patrick Seal, if I could ask you just to comment on what President Bush was saying there. Sounded like a veiled threat to Iran, effectively.
Absolutely. It's as if he was saying the Israeli strike against Syria was meant to intimidate Iran and show what it could happen to it. Now, of course, this is a terribly mistaken way of approaching this problem. Indeed, if I may pick up one of the points that Ambassador Rabinovich made a moment ago about public diplomacy. Well, an unprovoked attack against Syria, an air attack against Syria, and the ongoing slaughter in Gaza is hardly a way of influencing Arab opinion in the right direction. So I fear that Israel is still an aggressive power. The United States is still trying to intimidate Iran. This obsession with Iran is, in my view, profoundly mistaken. And the idea that somehow Syria can be forced to sever its links with Iran, links which go back now 3 decades, it's like asking Israel to sever its links with the United States. This is an unrealistic policy. Peace is worth having on its own account without attempting to dictate the foreign policy of neighboring Arab states.
Ambassador Rabinovich, if I could ask you to address the issue that some critics have come up with, saying that the US released this information 7 months later about the alleged North Korean Syrian cooperation on nuclear facilities as a way to curtail any talks between Israel and Syria. And I wonder, from your perspective, is it basically to stop the talks? Is the US so opposed to the idea of Israel and Syria talking?
It is opposed to this idea, and this has been conveyed diplomatically and sometimes openly to the Olmert government. But I don't think that the Bush administration needs to resort to such far-fetched ways of trying to obstruct this negotiation. And it is, after all, with all due respect to the Israeli-Syrian relationship, we are 2 pawns on a large chessboard. North Korea, Iran, the whole international system is at play here, and there are linkages between this issue and some larger problems, and that part of what the President said, I think, is President Bush, is perfectly true. But I'd like to respond to my friend Patrick Seal about the unprovoked slaughter in Gaza. Israel retaliates in Gaza to rockets fired by Hamas, supplied by Iran through Damascus. Syria and Iran and others are playing with fire here. Israel left Gaza voluntarily, and it is not a correct lesson for Israel or for the whole region that if you leave a region, a rocket should follow you from that region. So responsibility for death in Gaza also lies with people in Damascus and in Tehran.
Dr. Seal, a quick response, if you like, before...
Yeah. Yes, I'd like to respond to that. I mean, of course, Israel did leave Gaza, but it imposed a terrible siege on Gaza. The 1.5 million population are starving. Now, it's also worth recalling that the Palestinian rockets against Israel have killed about 12 Israelis in the last 7 years. Israel has killed 2,000 Palestinians in the last 2 years, and it's including 53 children just since the beginning of this year. Now, the disproportion is so glaring that, I mean, every humanitarian organization in the world has condemned Israel for this slaughter. It is state terrorism of its worst kind. And this is not the way to solve the Palestinian problem.
Now, Ambassador, I know you disagree with this, but moving back to the issue of Israel and Syria, I want to actually bring in Professor Georgiati again here and ask what you make of, going back to the nuclear facility, alleged nuclear facility, the strikes on it. What do you make of that attack and how it might, that situation might hamper any talks between Israel and Syria now?
Well, look, all this talk that we are hearing is based on the assumption that there is a nuclear facility. In my own personal view, and I am no nuclear scientist, this allegation, I'm very skeptical with regards to both form and substance. By the way of form, this administration brought out alleged evidence that is even thinner than the evidence it brought out about Iraqi weapons of mass destruction. At the time, it had a signature. Secretary Powell presented this at the Security Council with the director of the CIA behind him. This time we have a faceless narrator showing us computer graphics. With regard to substance, again, I'm not a scientist, but there isn't the amount of water required to have a facility, nor the electrical production, nor the graphite in order to have this facility. So therefore, I attribute this rather to some elements in the administration who perhaps want to torpedo North Korean U.S. talks on that issue.
Actually, Ambassador Rabinovich, do you think that possibly was the case, that the attack on the Syrian site might just have been basically a ruse for U.S. interests in other areas, and again to set an example?
No, I'm afraid the facts are facts. The Syrians were constructing a nuclear reactor with North Korean help. The intelligence was very solid. I agree with Dr. Georgiati on one thing. Syria does not have a nuclear reactor now, but it was close to having one 7 months ago.
Saud's on the line from Bahrain. I want to get a caller in from Saud. Go ahead.
Yes, Riz, I'd like to pose a question to the Israeli negotiator that their main concern is Syria's capability and potentially Iran's capability. I'd like to pose the question to him. This is their potential capability. Our concern is their existing capability. That's what's stemming the concern for Syria, Iran, and other neighboring countries.
Okay.
How would he like to answer that question?
Ambassador, the fact that Israel is already in a strong position as far as its capability compared with the aspirations of its neighbors.
Yeah. Well, the real reason for Israel to want to make peace with Syria is to be able to live in peace with all its neighbors. The last neighbor that we are in danger of having a conventional war with is Syria. And it would be very important for us, first of all, to remove that danger. And secondly, as we seek to normalize our existence, which is the main goal of what every Israeli has in mind, in addition to having peace with Egypt and Jordan, and hopefully with Lebanon and Syria, is to make peace with Syria, and Lebanon will follow suit. That's the most basic need and want.
Professor Georgiati, a quick thought then with 30 seconds to go. Where do you see the next steps for the talks that Turkey's brokering?
Well, again, I would say that the Syrians have a real need to have these talks be open and transparent so that there aren't any conspiracy theories out there.
Although the ambassador was saying that
the Israelis obviously find this difficult, but again, there is not only an Israeli public opinion, but a Syrian public and an Arab public opinion. The siege on the Palestinians must be lifted, and the hope is that these talks get a momentum so that something can happen.
Professor, thank you very much. And Dr. Seal, Ambassador Rabinovich, thank you for being with us.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. On the next show, we look at the miscarriage of justice in America with a lawyer who's helped to free an innocent man who spent 27 years in prison. We'll see you for that next time.